Hey losers, and welcome back. It's your boy YoungGaryOak. So today I wanted to step away from the pack openings and I wanted to talk a little bit more about Pokemon the actual game. So as you guys know, not that long ago, Sun and Moon was officially released for Nintendo 3DS, and with that, they brought us all sorts of new Pokemon in this series. Some that were extremely cute like we expected, from the newest starters like Litten to probably the cutest addition of all the new Pokemon, the Alolan Vulpix. Then, of course, they gave us some new additions that were just extremely odd. I mean, just look at this Alola Persian. Doesn't he look like something out of Rick and Morty?
Wubba lubba dub dub!
And others, which, frankly, just left us scratching our heads. But I feel like every new series of Pokemon brings us some brand new Pokedex entries that are just plain creepy. Sun and Moon was no different. So without further ado, let's just jump into our top 10. Now again, this is my top 10, so you might find some other ones creepy or weirder than these, so feel free to go ahead and leave those in the comments down below, and don't worry, I won't be offended if you disagree with me. Number 10, good old Metapod. For Sun and Moon, they gave Metapod's Pokedex entry quite a dark little makeover. It reads, its shell is filled with soft innards. It doesn't move much because of the risk it might spill its innards out. So whatever preconceived notions you might have of Metapod and how useless he might be because all he can really do is harden, this might actually give a little bit of explanation as to why Metapod is, well, so Metapod. I'm pretty sure that in battle, if all I could do was harden my shell in hopes that my insides didn't fall out while I'm being berated by another Pokemon, I'd be pretty useless as well. Which is why I found this Pokedex entry a little dark and depressing, and why, even though it's not as crazy as others might be, it still deserves a spot on our list. Number 9, Kamala. Kamala is the first Pokemon from the new generation to make our list here at number 9, and let me just read you the entry and see if you agree. It's born asleep and dies asleep. All its movements are apparently no more than the results of its tossing and turning in its dreams. And if you even go and check the Pokemon website, it also mentions how no one's ever seen Kamala awake. Now, if you ask me, that's pretty depressing itself. Kamala is almost somewhat of a sleepwalker, roaming the Alola region without even opening its eyes. At least we can hope that Kamala is having some wonderful dreams while it's asleep. Though it does make you wonder how peaceful his dreams could possibly be, with a moveset that contains attacks like Roll Out, Spit Up, Slam, Flail, Sucker Punch, Wood Hammer, and Thrash. So not only is this guy stuck being asleep, he's also stuck having some pretty terrible nightmares. Number 8. This is where things take a little turn for the weird. We have another Gen 7 Pokemon, Incineroar. Incineroar is the final evolution of the starter Pokemon Litten, flaunting its sharp claws, razor-sharp teeth, a flame belt, and what looks like some zebra striping. Enough with his awesome design, let's get to his Pokedex entry, and why I felt the need to add this to our list. As you can imagine, Incineroar has some pretty strong fire attacks, and being a final evolution makes him a pretty tough Pokemon. Even though he's Mr. Big and Bad, he seems to have some pretty weird kinks. His Pokedex entry for Moon states, after hurling ferocious punches and flinging furious kicks, it finishes opponents off by spewing fire from around its navel. Which leads you to believe that maybe that's not a fire belt he's wearing after all, and just a gross place where he shoots fire from. I don't know, this one was weird to me. Like, I know he's spewing fire from his belly button, which is already weird enough, but just the placement of the belt is a little low and looks like he could possibly be shooting some fire from somewhere else. It's almost like he's getting off on beating up these other Pokemon, which could lead to some pretty weird theories about how Littens are conceived, and let's just not touch that one. Number 7, sticking to the Gen 7 theme, our next Pokemon, well, let's just say it looks less like a Pokemon and more like a line play character. But that's actually done intentionally. Since characters and mascots are hugely popular in Japan, Nintendo decided to take that image and turn it into a Pokemon, but they couldn't stop there. They had to go take something soft and cuddly and turn it into something dark and kind of cruel. This Pokemon is Beware. At first look, you'd see this guy and be like, oh, how adorable, like what is it, I want to hug it. But at least Nintendo's kind enough to give you a heads up with not only its name, but its Pokedex entry on why that's probably one of the last things you want to do. This Pokemon has a habit of hugging its companions. Many trainers have left this world after their spines were squashed by its hug. Now, if that doesn't sound adorable and sad and depressing, I don't know what does. This guy has so much love to give that he just wants to squeeze the people he cares about, but apparently he just doesn't understand his own strength and will literally bear hug you to death. Though I'm willing to bet it's probably one of the warmest hugs you'll ever receive, even if it is your last. Number 6. Good old Psyduck, a Pokemon known for its terrible headaches and goofy antics.
Something's happening. Psyduck doesn't look so hot.
Looks like it's got a headache to me.
If you've been a fan of the series for a while now, you're probably a lot like me and you have a soft spot in your heart for good old Psyduck, all thanks to Misty.
Horsey, horsey. I think this is...
Psyduck!
Oh, you dimwit duck! There's nothing noble about you!
But his Gen 7 Pokedex entry might just break your heart for little old Psyduck. As I'm sure most of you guys know, Psyduck has had a troubling past filled with headaches from the beginning of time. So for Psyduck, these headaches are nothing new. And in series past, generally the worse the headache, the stronger his abilities. In Gen 7, they decided to take this a little bit further. In Sun, his Pokedex entry reads, as a result of headaches so fierce they cause it to cry, it sometimes uses psychokinesis without meaning to. This really goes to show that Psyduck doesn't have complete control over his abilities, as we might have already assumed, but we're also learning that these headaches are causing him some serious anguish. And it kind of makes you think twice before battling with your Psyduck. Do you really want to put him through that kind of pain?
Huh?
Hey, look! This is incredible! Lickitung's Lick Attack isn't working against Psyduck!
Number 5. Another murderous Pokemon that just wants to be loved, and coincidentally is just now being introduced to us in Generation 7. Man, I'm starting to feel like Gen 7 is more of a commentary on mental health issues in the world than it is about Pokemon. So the next Pokemon on our countdown is Mimikyu. Mimikyu almost looks like a deranged Ditto took form of a Pikachu. That or my grandma made me a stuffed animal Pikachu at home and this is what I got. So a little backstory for Mimikyu. As I'm sure a decent amount of you know by now, Mimikyu wears a raggedy Pikachu costume. This isn't Mimikyu's actual appearance, but instead it hides under this old Pikachu costume, hoping that people will love it as much as they love good old Pikachu. Despite his Chucky-like appearances, with an adorable personality like that, you might think, why would Mimikyu hide its true identity? And this is where Nintendo gets creative, but pretty dark with its Pokedex entry. A scholar who saw what was under its rag was overwhelmed by terror and died from the shock. Needless to say, Mimikyu's true form is so terrifying that it kills humans almost instantly just by looking at it. So it's no surprise that Mimikyu has to wear a disguise to make friends. Number 4. Another Pokemon known only to the Alola region that's already making a name for itself, but not only because of its appearance, it's Palossand. Palossand is actually becoming well known for its ability to physically enslave children and adults. But that's not all. Both its Sun and Moon Pokedex entries give trainers a wonderfully vivid visual, describing the terrible Pokemon graveyard that Palossand builds underneath its walls. It states, buried beneath the castle are masses of dried up bones from those whose vitality it has drained. Thanks a lot, Nintendo. I could have lived the rest of my life without that image in my head. So next time you're on the beach and you're thinking about kicking over that little kid's sandcastle, think twice. You never know, there might actually be a pile of bones under there. Needless to say, this kind of a dark Pokedex entry is why Palossand ranks so high on my list. So that leaves us with just our top 3 to go. And let's just say these next 3 are very deserving of the top 3 spots, and I had a really hard time trying to decide which one should go where. So before we get into these final 3, try and guess if you can figure out what these next 3 might be, or let me know if I've already covered the Pokemon you were thinking of. Number 3, this Pokemon's Pokedex entry not only sounds like something out of a horror movie, but looks the part as well.
Let's give it a try, Snowrun. Oh, run! Oh, could someone tell me what's happening?
Glalie is a pretty terrifying evolution to come out of a cute little Snorunt. In the past, Glalie's been known to have some pretty awful Pokedex entries, mentioning how it likes to freeze its prey and eat them in a leisurely fashion. But for Game Freak, that didn't go far enough. In the Sun Pokedex, we learn a little bit more about Glalie and how he came to be. It reads, legend says a boulder on an icy mountain absorbed the distress and regrets of a stranded mountaineer, giving rise to Glalie. Now when I read this, the first thing that came to mind was James Franco in 127 Hours. You know that scene where his arm is trapped in a boulder and he's trying to hack it off so he can escape? I feel like Glalie embodies those who weren't strong enough either physically or mentally to, cut their own arm off, aka me, and are just left there to die and suffer. Which would mean that at least in the Alola region, in order for Glalie to take form, the human or trainer has to suffer one of the most miserable, lonely, and excruciating deaths imaginable, making Glalie a worthy top 3 candidate. Man, How does Nintendo and Pokemon come up with this stuff? I thought Pokemon was made to be like a kid's game. That's dark. Number 2, we come to the Pokemon Drifloon. Now for Sun and Moon, its Pokedex entry isn't much different than in the past, but it does have one little difference that, really adds to the effect. So in past generations, Drifloon has been known as the balloon who likes to kidnap children. Yes, like I said before, this is supposed to be a children's game, and now it's talking about balloons kidnapping children. This is pretty messed up stuff. But like I said before, there is a slight addition to Drifloon's Alola Pokedex entry. According to the Pokedex, Drifloon dislikes heavy children. What? Yep, you heard it. That's not a mistake. Drifloon dislikes heavy children. So let me read you Drifloon's new Pokedex entry. Stories go that it grabs the hands of small children and drags them away to the afterlife. ... It dislikes heavy children. I can't make this up. This is too real. You can't make this up. Ugh. And let's not forget how the Moon entry says, if for some reason its body bursts, its soul spills out with a screaming sound. That's terrifying. So not only is this Pokedex entry pretty dark, it's also rude, but not nearly as dark as number 1 on our list. So if you thought that was bad, remember, Drifloon's only number 2, which leads us to the Pokemon at the number 1 spot of our top 10. This is a Pokemon that is cruel, torturous, and vindictive. This Pokemon is Frostlass. So the Pokedex entries and the myths go as far back as Heart Gold and Soul Silver, where it states, the legend of Frostlass suggests that the icy Pokemon was once a human woman who got lost and perished on a snowy ridge. And I know what you're thinking. This sounds so much like Glalie. Why is this one worse? So if you made that connection, I tip my hat to you. But the new Pokedex suggests something that's much more sinister, much more disturbing, and much more vengeful. The new Moon Pokedex tells us that the food Frostlass most relishes is the souls of men, which makes it very apparent that Frostlass eats humans and Pokemon alike. And if that alone isn't enough to make Frostlass the number 1 on our list, maybe the entry in the Sun Pokedex will change your mind. And it says, when she finds someone she likes, Frostlass encases them in ice and places them around her lair as morbid conversation pieces. You can even see an example of this in the anime. That's absolutely terrifying. It's almost like mounting a deer head on your wall, except that deer's still alive. Pretty crazy stuff, and exactly why I think Frostlass deserves the number 1 spot on this top 10. So that'll do it for my list of these top 10 Pokedex entries for Sun and Moon that are just plain dark and kind of disturbing for a kid's game. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. If there are any that I forgot or left out, please leave a comment and let me know. And if you guys did enjoy this video, let me know, and there will be more top 10s for you guys in the future. That is it for me today, and I'll see you in the next video.